And what we ultimately came up with is I said, what if I can take this information to Congresswoman Liz Cheney and see if she can call you back? And in the meantime, we can look at trying to get you representation.
What I have with Liz Cheney is that she basically became the de facto chairman of the committee. She was in charge. She was calling the shots. And she was communicating behind the scenes with Cassidy Hutchinson during that period of which she started changing her testimony. You know, John, you have covered many times that 14-page errata sheet where she corrected her first two transcribed interviews. It was that time period that she started communicating with Liz Cheney. And even in her books, she starts talking about that. So the question is, did Liz Cheney convince her to start changing her story? Because all of a sudden, she, in her third transcribed interview, she starts, as she said, as Cassidy had said in her book, she started laying breadcrumbs, which some believe that was actually a setup for her attorney, Stefan Pesatino, because they needed a scapegoat of why she's changing her testimony. So they accused him of telling her to lie, which he's been totally exonerated of by at this point. And so it's just interesting that that communication started, and then she starts changing her testimony. And then when she comes out with these elaborate stories, there is no corroboration. There's no attempt to figure out whether she's telling the truth or not. They parade her in front of the American people, and she becomes the star witness of the entire committee. It's just interesting that someone like her all of a sudden changes her story that significantly, and the only thing that happened in between was she was communicating unethically with Liz Cheney without her attorney knowing it. And that's why we think that the Department of Justice needs to look into this, because that could be witnessed.
There is a section of the book, she called it back channeling, between her second interview behind closed doors and her third interview behind closed doors. She's still being represented by a Trump lawyer, so she still has to watch what she says. She goes and has a glass of wine or two with you at your former Georgetown house, and you guys come up with a way for the truth to come out. Tell us what that is. She alludes to it, but you kind of have to read between the lines in the book.
Yeah, she came to me after her first two testimonies and said, there's more I need to say. I don't know how to go about it. We got together, and over the course of hours of talking about different scenarios, and she frankly sat me down and kind of laid out what she knew. And it was damning, whether it's the burning of documents, whether it's the thinking Mike Pence, former president thinking Mike Pence should be hung, things that are incredibly important for history and also the criminal investigations. And what we ultimately came up with is I said, what if I can take this information to Congresswoman Liz Cheney and see if she can call you back? And in the meantime, we can look at trying to get you representation pro bono. Luckily, she found fabulous attorneys who represented her pro bono. And what you can't forget in this, 25 years old at the time, not somebody who comes from money, not somebody who had some high-paying job, could barely make ends meet and still did the right thing when men with bigger titles and bigger salaries did not.
And Congressman Kinzinger, what happens is she does this interview still being represented by this Trump-paid attorney who's telling her, just say, I don't recall. And all of a sudden, Liz Cheney knows all this stuff and is asking her about all this stuff brilliant. Because of this back channeling.
I called Adam too.
And Pasantino's like, how does she know all this? Somebody must be talking.
Thank God you guys didn't anchor on me for that one, though, because Liz did way better. No, I mean it's brilliant. It's a brilliant way to do it, and I don't want to over or underestimate, whichever the right estimate is, the impact of a cost of a lawyer, and especially as Alyssa said, when you're barely making ends meet, and the lawyer, without telling you, tells you, look, here's what we need you to do, and this is all free. You don't have to worry. You get a pass, and there are going to be many people. I wish they had the courage to speak out like she did, that will talk about the fact that, I had to say no comment or I can't remember because I just couldn't afford a lawyer. Lawyers around here, by the way, are really expensive, especially around D.C.
Really. Now, we should point out that Stefan Pasantino underlines that he never told her to perjure herself, and she says he never told me to perjure myself. But it's also said that she says that he said, I don't recall is not perjury. What happens is she does this interview still being represented by this Trump-paid attorney who's telling her, just say, I don't recall. And all of a sudden, Liz Cheney knows all this stuff and is asking her about all this stuff brilliant. Because of this back channeling.
I called Adam too.
And Pasantino's like, how does she know all this? Somebody must be talking.